Gopi Janavalabha Ginivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Stotra Stata Shri Shrimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Turn it up. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 2, entitled Daksha Curses Lord Shiva, Text 16. Tasma unmadanataya Nashta Shauchaya Durhride Tatabata Maya Sadvi Chodite Parameshtina Tasma unmadanataya Nashta Shauchaya Durhride Tatabata Maya Sadvi Chodite Parameshtina Tasma unmadanataya Nashta Shaucha Durhride Tatabata Maya Sadvi Chodite Parameshtina Tasma unmadanataya Nashta Shauchaya Durhride Tatabata Maya Sadvi Chodite Parameshtina Tasma unmadanataya Nashta Shauchaya Durhride Tatabata Maya Sadvi Chodite Parameshtita. Tasmai, to him, Unmada, Nataya, to the Lord of Ghosts, Nashta Shauchaya, being devoid of all cleanliness, Duhride, heart filled with nasty things, Tata, was given, Bata, alas, Maya, by me, Sadvi, Sati, Chodite, being requested, Parameshtina, by the Supreme Teacher Brahma. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him, although he is devoid of all cleanliness and his heart is filled with nasty things. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki. It is the duty of the parents to hand over their daughters to suitable persons, just befitting their family tradition in cleanliness, gentle behavior, wealth, social position, etc. Daksha was repentant that on the request of Brahma, who was his father, he had handed over his daughter to a person who, according to his calculation, was nasty. He was so angry that he did not acknowledge that the request was from his father. Instead, he referred to Brahma as Parameshti, the supreme teacher in the universe, because of his temperament of gross anger. He was not even prepared to accept Brahma as his father. In other words, he accused even Brahma of being less intelligent because he had advised Daksha to hand over his beautiful daughter to such a nasty fellow. In anger, one forgets everything, and thus Daksha, in anger, not only accused the great Lord Shiva, but criticized his own father, Lord Brahma, for his not very astute advice that Daksha hand over his daughter to Lord Shiva. Om Jnana Tarandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, before we get into the super deep philosophy of the verse and all the subtext of what Daksha is saying, I thought we'd do a little bit of fun Sanskrit grammar to muddle our brains before we get into the philosophy, which I was looking at yesterday, because it's really interesting. All of these curses that Daksha is pronouncing to Lord Shiva are actually, it's said by a lot of the classes by the acharyas, by Prabhupada, and a lot it's said that they're taken in a positive interpretation because of what the words actually mean in Sanskrit. So I'm just going to find, I should have bookmarked it, where it was. Here we go. So some of the curses that Daksha uses in this chapter, there's like quite a few from the last few chapters that we've been going on about. If you've been here for all week for class, it's a little bit of dialogue of why would you do this, and then it's a big long list of adjectives for Lord Shiva. And the three we have that are interesting today are Nashta Shaucha, which is the first one, which means unclean, or literally Nashta. So Nashta being damaged and Shaucha being cleanliness, so damaged cleanliness. And the next one he uses is Unmada Natha, Lord of the Ghosts. So Unmada literally means mad. So in Sanskrit, the word for ghost is literally crazy or mad. So attached to the material world that you've just like, where's the sense, where's the logic in that? Which is an interesting word to use for ghosts. Lord of the Ghosts, Natha means Lord. And Duhride means he has an impure heart, or bad heart, basically. And so, but the positive way that we get a spin on this is that by now Shaucha, unclean, Lord Shiva purifies even the impure. He purifies even the unclean. Or Unmada Natha, Lord of the Ghosts. He is merciful even to the mad. Or for the impure of heart, his mind is merciful even to the sinful. So, depending on your translation of the meaning, all of these insults that are being hurled at Lord Shiva are actually compliments as well, because of the actual service that Lord Shiva does for the entire world. Because Lord Vishnu, he takes care of all of the Vaishnavas, all of the pure devotees, all of the people who are in Krishna consciousness, trying to serve him basically. And Brahma takes care of those who are more materially or interested in more material activities. They take shelter of Lord Brahma. But then all the rest of the people who are in the modes of ignorance and just have no clue, that's why they call it the mode of ignorance. At least, people who are searching after even material things, still they know we need to go to someone to get all of our stuff. And all the Vaishnavas certainly now have to go take shelter of Krishna, but when you're in the mode of ignorance, you're not even wrapped up in wanting anything material or wanting anything spiritual. So it's a much more unfortunate state of being. And so Lord Shiva, he's the one that anyone who in the mode of ignorance, he's the one who they take shelter of. Basically, he's like the Lord Chaitanya of all the ignorant people. Basically, is one way to look at it. So that's some interesting Sanskrit that we go into. And then another note on that is when in the purport it says that in anger one forgets everything. And this is true, which we know from speaking English and getting angry at someone. You just speak before you think, because it's natural, because of the way the words are organized. With the subject coming first, it's so easy to just speak and say exactly what we think really fast without thinking about it. Just exactly what comes to mind, right? But in Sanskrit, because of the way the language is organized, you actually do have to, because of the way your words are structured in a sentence, you actually do have to think before you speak, quite a lot actually, to really organize which way, so the insult would come like at the end of the sentence, and then you would say all the rest of it beforehand, depending on how it was organized. So you'd have to think, am I really going to say this to the person before you reach the end of the sentence? And you might have already reconsidered. So it's really interesting. Even Sanskrit was, or a version of it anyway, is what they spoke, especially the demigods. So even in the higher languages and the higher ages, still being part of the material world, you're susceptible to Maya, always trying to angle at absolutely everyone all the time, which we all experience all the time as well. So that's some interesting Sanskrit notes for this verse, which are always fun to look into. And so speaking of anger, I actually heard an interesting Sankirtan story from my dad the other day. There's this person who comes up to the book table, which we have on Queen Street, and he comes and I think he's a homeless person, but he's always coming up and saying, Auckland is a Christian place, you can't do any of this stuff here, these books are blasphemous, so on and so forth. And but the main thing is he would take the books and he would knock them off the table onto the ground. Was his main kind of service to some degree to purify the devotees. And so he would do that. He would just knock them on the ground all the time. And so whenever I was there once when it happened, and Namaruchi has also been there a lot, way more when that's happened, and he was talking to my dad, and he's like, why are you letting him do that? We need to tell him not to do that, and just be forceful and make him go away. And that's what I was thinking as well. We need to, we have to be, sometimes you have to be forceful. But an interesting point was that, there he is. You can't retaliate against the devotees, or really you shouldn't retaliate against anyone when they offend you, because what happened with this guy, Dad, I'm talking about you now. What happened with this guy is he came back just yesterday to the book table, and how did he get books? Do you remember? What? Did you give him books previously? The guy from the table? No? Somebody gave him some books. He might have nicked one. That's true. He might have nicked one. But he started reading it, and he came in and he said, I love these books. I'm reading these books, and they're so great now. And, can I get another one? And so he got another book, because Dad was very, peaceful and mild towards him, and never, insulted him or said, go away, or pushed him or anything, So that's why, or never retaliated, basically. So that's why when, devotees offend us, it's one of the best ways to see it for their own benefit is that that's their service that they're doing. And it's really unfortunate to be in the position of having to purify the devotees and insult them and everything, obviously. You don't want that service. But even so, you should never retaliate, because you never know what people's service are, A, and B, what their future is and what their future service will be, and you don't want to impede that by retaliating, right? Because retaliation is such a big deal. So that's an interesting point about anger and tolerance and forgiveness. That's why it's always said that a pure devotee, one of his qualities is very mild, right? Prabhupada, there's a nice song about Prabhupada, and they say he's mild in it. It's interesting, and you hear all these, he's very tolerant, he's very wise, all of these attributes you would associate with a pure devotee, acharya, wise person. And mild is one of those ones that sneaks in there, and you have to actually think about it. Well, why is he described as mild? Well, mainly for this reason as well, because in mildness, you can't retaliate against people. You just have to be calm, and you have to be a philosopher if you want to be mild. That's why also his devotees were encouraged, come to class and listen to the philosophy and read the books and try and think about what they really mean. Like when Prabhupada says all these things, when it's said that the acharyas are called mild, you have to think, well, why is that so? Because if you're philosophical, then you want to try and see all the different angles of something, and then you're less likely to if you see all the different angles of something, you're less likely to make offenses because you can understand every point of view. And even if you don't understand exactly what someone's purpose is for why they're just attacking you or anything, you can at least understand, well, it's a service from Krishna, because not a blade of grass moves without Krishna wanting it to, right? But this is always hard. As Daksha proves to us, it's always tricky to keep in mind when we're very, very angry. And so that state of mildness, of not letting your emotions completely overcloud your judgment, like in Star Wars as well. It's a good lesson that, we get repeated a lot, because it is very hard to do. It takes self-control. So I don't know if Daksha would have gone to Bhagavatam class that morning. Anyway, so that's an interesting point about anger that I was thinking about as well. What was one other? I had one more Sanskrit word I wanted to go into, actually. Daksha, Lord Shiva. Oh yeah, so Daksha, out of anger, addresses Brahma as Parameshti, supreme teacher in the universe, which is a cool word that he can use. And that's actually, that's a really interesting word, Parameshti. But he doesn't address him as father, even though he is his father. So he accuses Brahma of being unintelligent for requesting to give sati to Lord Shiva. So, in anger, he even forgets that Lord Brahma is his father. That's how, powerful anger is if you just let it completely control you. So, don't go to the dark side. What else have we got here? So Lord Shiva is called auspicious, meaning, Lord Shiva in the previous verse, I think in the previous verse, or in one of the previous verses, or one of the ones after. I was looking at all of them, so I'm not sure. Previous one? Okay. In the previous verse, he's called all auspicious, and this kind of relates back to him being the patron, protector of all of the people in the mode of ignorance. Because auspicious means, hands, anybody? What does auspicious mean? What's the definition of auspicious? We use it so much, we should know. What's the definition of auspicious? I'm going to use his definition anyway. Creating good fortune, exactly. That's the definition of auspicious, is creating good fortune, and also creating good fortune for everyone, doing something that's beneficial for everyone involved, for everyone. So the popular example is if you get ice cream and there's a bus full of kids and you get everyone ice cream, but there's 5 lactose intolerant kids, it's not very auspicious to want to go get ice cream, is it? Right? If there's no vegan ice cream or whatever. So you want to, just get bliss balls or something instead, something that's good for everyone, that everyone can enjoy, or that's beneficial. And beneficial can mean you enjoy it or not, depends on what the circumstances are, but it's beneficial for everyone. So that's why Lord Shiva, one of the reasons Lord Shiva is called auspicious, is because he's completing the, he's the one who takes, who gives his mercy to all of the unfortunate souls who, aren't taking shelter of Lord Brahma or Lord Vishnu. So he's completing that auspiciousness for everyone of having someone to take shelter of, especially in these higher ages when it's easier to access the demigods. Today, if it's harder to just walk up, go into the ocean of milk and say, Brahma, I need some advice, right? We're not around for thousands of years to do penance, so we have to that's why we have the parampara system, right? That's why we have Devameeta Swami, and he's actually the one who says in his class not to retaliate against the devotees. That was one of his points that he makes a lot as well. And we have all the spiritual masters, and we have Prabhupada's books, which are very helpful. So that's all part of the parampara system of our version of taking shelter. And Prabhupada, he was writing auspiciously. He was writing for everyone. So no matter what you want to take shelter for, you can do so in his books, because we hear all these different things that Prabhupada says, and sometimes it's like, well, why did he say that? Because just in this last canto, he said this. Because he's writing for everyone. He's auspiciously writing for everyone in the whole universe. So, So Lord Shiva, that's an interesting point about him being called all auspicious as well. So Daksha, he did give his daughter Sati to Lord Shiva. And so by doing this, he did what he was asked to do by his father. He complained about it a lot, but he still did his duty and did what his father asked. As in his actions, he did his duty, basically. So in that kind of a way, we can see that it is possible to do your duty and be really, insulting and unpleasant while doing it, or just making disturbance while doing it. And so we always want to, so that's kind of the difference between, doing your duty of what you're supposed to do and really, accepting it and thinking it's for the greater good because someone's superior to you. That's another part of taking shelter, is that, someone superior, someone is doing something is doing things all the time that are beneficial for the whole world, asks you to do something, you do it. When the devotees ask you to do something, you do it. When they ask you, please go and clean that floor in the corner there for the next 4 hours while class is going on, you go do it, even if you would rather be sitting in class, right? You still say, okay, Prabhu, I'll go do it, if there's no one else to do it. And so you go off and you clean that one little corner of the floor with a toothbrush for 4 hours while class is going on. But if you say, to that person, why would I do that? I want to go up and listen to class. There's got to be someone else to do it. Why can't I do it after class? You can, say all the, and then but then you'll probably end up going and doing it anyway because they'll out-reason you of, it's a service, no one else can do it. But you still, you cause that disturbance. And what also Lord Shiva is doing, which we hear a little bit later, and I won't spoil too much of it, but he's trying to, through this whole curse situation, which goes on for a whole other chapter as well, when we were talking about his curses being a blessing, even in the wording they can be taken as compliments, but also in actual fact of what they do, they're also a blessing for Lord Shiva because he's avoiding interruption to his devotional service. He's avoiding hindrance to his devotional service. And that's all I'm going to say about what happens next. So someone else can actually talk about it. But he's avoiding the